MaXXXine, the movie, is unfortunately fictional. I wish serial killers like John Wayne Gacy and Ted Bundy had to contend with the likes of this girl in real life. She's in this perfect position to lure the predators in with her sex appeal and apparent helplessness, and then like a Venus flytrap, catch her prey and give them a taste of their own medicine. MaXXXine, directed by Ti West and starring Mia Goth, is the third movie in the trilogy, preceded by Pearl and X. Since narrowly surviving the events of the prequel X, MaXXXine has since moved to Hollywood, found success as a performer in the adult entertainment industry, and now she's looking to expand into more family-friendly movies. She's got her fair share of issues, sure, but for the most part, she's out there smashing goals, living her best life, and some lunatic keeps murdering all the people around her, so she's forced to deal with that. Yes, she deals with it in some pretty gruesome ways, but you still can't help but root for her, and you get the feeling that if the world around MaXXXine wasn't so messed up, then she wouldn't need to be either. When I watched the second movie in the trilogy, Pearl, I thought, my god, this girl is insane. How can she go around killing all these innocent people? But when I was watching MaXXXine, I was like, oh yeah, no, okay. Yeah, no, I can see why she does the things she does. I don't think I've seen a female lead in a horror quite like this. I mean, let's be real, usually they're either helpless victims or deranged psychopaths. But here we get a leading lady in a horror who can handle herself, and isn't looking to start any fights, but sure as hell will end some fights if you choose to mess with her. I think the closest example I can think of to a strong female lead in a horror would be Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs. But her character is very straight edge and by the book, whereas MaXXXine thrives in the underbelly of Hollywood, isn't afraid to play dirty, and knows how to defeat her enemies at their own game. Her moral ambiguity makes her far more interesting than a character that is either all good or all bad. Ti West does a great job at making this movie feel like the 80s, not just because of the outdated fashion and the old cars and telephones, but the style of filmmaking itself felt very 80s. I couldn't find a definitive answer online, so maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think they used any CGI in the movie. The violence definitely wasn't computer generated. It all looked like the kind of grassroots practical effects from 80s slasher films with bright red blood spraying everywhere. Compared to the previous two movies, this one feels like less of a pure horror and more like a horror/thriller/drama. There's less on-screen violence and more story. It's essentially a whodunit, but to me, the question of whodunit, who's the killer, wasn't even the most interesting part. It's not like an Agatha Christie novel where you're constantly trying to guess who the murderer could be and you're dying to find out. I found myself not really caring about the identity of the killer. And the eventual answer as to who the killer is fairly predictable anyway, and not as clever as an Agatha Christie reveal, where Detective Hercule Poirot explains how he meticulously arrived at his conclusion. Mia Goth was once again incredible. She's just so interesting to watch that I found, even when other characters were talking to her, I wouldn't look at them, I'd just watch Mia Goth listening to them. I'm calling it now, she's winning an Oscar in the next 10 years. I mean, this trilogy alone is enough to convince me that she's one of the finest actors of her generation. My favourite character aside from MaXXXine was Kevin Bacon as the private investigator, who doesn't commit any crimes himself, but just helps other people to commit crimes, which is just as bad. But he seems to think this makes him innocent, like, oh, I didn't kill anyone, I just helped the murderer to find his victim. Whatever happens next, it's not my fault. Taking zero accountability for his actions, and not caring one iota about anyone but himself. He's so repulsive, but in a way that makes you smile and enjoy watching him, because Kevin Bacon is doing such a brilliant job at breathing life into this sleazeball, and you can see how much fun he's having with the part. I know it's cliche to say, oh, the setting is a character, but in truth, not only is Hollywood and the presence of Hollywood an integral character in this movie, it's pretty much the main villain too. Through MaXXXine's experience, we see the cutthroat nature of Hollywood. Every successful actor, director, and writer is standing on the corpses of thousands of people who tried and failed. Even those who have succeeded aren't happy because they're all afraid that they'll be kicked out and replaced at a moment's notice. No one is safe, and being successful only means you have more to lose. There's a character who's a successful film director in the movie, played by Elizabeth Debicki, and she says something to MaXXXine along the lines of, if you want to succeed in Hollywood, you have to be obsessed, cut all other distractions out, and keep your eye on the ball or you'll be spat out and replaced. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is Ti West's third movie that he's released in 3 years, and the only way that's possible is if he's been doing non-stop 12-hour days for the last 4 years. So I think in MaXXXine he's talking about his own love-hate relationship with Hollywood. After decades in the industry, he finally got a chance to make a movie for A24, and like any artist, he was probably afraid that it'd be the last chance he'd get, so he kept the momentum going and made 2 consecutive films before the ship had time to come to a halt. The initial plan was only to make the movie X. It's an impressive wave he's ridden for the last 4 years, so I hope after he's done doing press for this movie, he goes on a big beach holiday, sipping on a pina colada with cucumbers on his eyes, because he's earned it. Movies like X, Pearl, and now MaXXine are important contributions to the horror genre, as they are led by story and a study of character and relationships first, and then the violence and gore occurs around that, as opposed to lazy horror movies where the violence is the main thing and the story feels secondary. I'm gonna give MaXXine a 7.5 out of 10. I can definitely see people enjoying horror movie marathons of this trilogy for many years to come. And if you like to marathon my videos, then you can see the review I recently did on The Bike Riders and A Quiet Place Day 1. And if you don't want to miss my future videos, then make sure you subscribe. I'll see you guys soon.